America votes for change. Donald Trump is elected the next president of the United States. Utter jubilation for Trump supporters as the outsider in this race eclipsed his opponent. A man with no political experience has well and truly shaken up the political system. He thanked Hillary Clinton and pledged to bring unity.
I say it is time for us to come together as one united people. It's time.
Trump clinched it across the Rust Belt states, a vote of confidence from those who felt left behind and disillusioned with the political system.
We get our country back because it was going to be not America anymore.
Tears and shock in the Clinton camp. Hillary's dream is over. I'm live in Washington as America and the world digests the news that Donald Trump will be the next president. Also this lunchtime. The latest on a tram crash in South London. Several people have died and 50 more are hurt.
This is the ITV Lunchtime News with Mary Nightingale in Washington.
Good afternoon from Washington. On the day Donald Trump won the race to become the next president of the United States, America, it seems, was indeed hungry for change. The billionaire businessman defied all expectations by beating Hillary Clinton. Many were still predicting the first woman in the White House, even as the results were being counted. But as Mr. Trump won state after state, Mrs. Clinton conceded over the phone in the early hours of the morning. The 45th president-elect has addressed his supporters, the nation and the world. It is, he said, time to come together and unite. Quite something for a man whose campaign thrived on anger and division. This lunchtime, the polls look like this. With 4 states yet to declare, Donald Trump has gained 28 to Hillary Clinton's 19 states. It's given him 278 electoral college votes, and that's easily enough to pass the winning margin of 270. Our Washington correspondent Robert Moore has the story of the night and how Donald Trump clinched it.
Trump, the projected winner in North Carolina. Donald Trump wins the state of Georgia. Donald Trump is the apparent winner in Florida. Idaho.
This was shock after seismic shock. Leaving a country stunned, and Donald Trump's supporters, so often angry with America and the world, now jubilant. Themselves astonished at what unfolded overnight.
The President-elect of the United States of America, Donald Trump.
America now has perhaps the unlikeliest president-elect in its history. This is a man who has never before held office of any kind, never worn the uniform of the US military. An unpredictable populist whose victory in the end was emphatic.
I've just received a call from Secretary Clinton. She congratulated us, it's about us, on our victory. And I congratulated her and her family on a very, very hard-fought campaign. I mean, she fought very hard.
And then he promised a pivot of dizzying proportions. A man who has mocked and baited so many groups, saying he would now play the role of healer-in-chief.
Now it's time for America to bind the wounds of division. Have to get together. To all Republicans and Democrats and independents across this nation, I say it is time for us to come together as one united people. Time. I pledge to every citizen of our land that I will be president for all Americans, and this is so important to me.
Across town, Hillary Clinton supporters tried to keep their hopes up for much of the night. But the anticipated victory party was in the end much more than just a defeat. In the eyes of Democrats, this is only slightly less than a national trauma. Tellingly, Mrs. Clinton never made an appearance here. No concession speech and not even a tweet. Just that private call to a man who has vowed to lock her up, whose rallying call was to describe her family as a criminal enterprise. It is impossible to know how the shock of this result will play out. But as the results poured in this morning, protesters gathered outside the White House. Mainly young Americans trying to understand how and why the nation has taken this direction.
We have a guy that's a white nationalist. It's just disgusting to me, and I've seen this happen with Brexit, and I've seen this happen around the world, and it's just so saddening to me that this could possibly happen to our nation, a nation that I find so great and so beautiful.
This is also a crushing, even legacy-ending blow for the president. We last saw him yesterday walking down the West Wing colonnade. Now he must hand over to a man who rose to political prominence by peddling the falsehood that Obama wasn't even born in America, should never have been an American president.
It's my honor. It was an amazing evening. It's been an amazing 2-year period. And I love this country. Thank you.
These are uncharted waters now. The president-elect and his family soaking up the atmosphere. But in the very establishment that he has ridiculed, there are profound worries that Trump is temperamentally unsuited for the Oval Office and the Situation Room.
And Robert is overlooking the Capitol building this morning. So, Robert, how did he do it then?
Well, look, Mary, I think it's fair to say this city is actually shell-shocked at the moment. It'll take years to understand exactly why the polls got this so spectacularly wrong. I think all we can say with some confidence this morning in Washington is that the Obama coalition, that famed group of voters, simply did not turn out for Hillary Clinton. You know, those minority voters that backed President Obama in 2008 and 2012, primarily it appeared stayed at home this time. They couldn't counter the surge of white working men who came out for Donald Trump. I mean, think about this statistic. 30% of Latinos voted for Donald Trump. So the headline here is not only that the presidency has gone to Donald Trump, but also the House and the Senate here are still in Republican control. So a party that we thought was in civil war is actually now in full control of all branches of government. We've just heard in the last few minutes that Hillary Clinton in the next hour will come out and address her supporters. What a crushing blow for her after so many decades in the public eye.
Robert Moore, thank you. And it was victory in key swing states that really pushed Trump over the winning line. Among them, Ohio went his way. Now, that's a state that once boomed with industry, but now many parts are in severe economic decline. And our correspondent Martin Geisler is in Youngstown there. Martin, why did those voters then turn out for Donald Trump?
Well, Mary, because he spoke to them and because they have been angry and frustrated for decades that nobody else in political circles in this country really had. As you say, this is Rust Belt America, a part of the country that boomed during the years of heavy industry and has been silenced pretty much ever since. The steel factories have gone and the jobs have gone, but the frustration has grown. And along came this man with his big promises to stand up for the little guy, and suddenly they thought, hang on a minute, this guy really cares about us. Now, we're talking about the world's reaction here. We saw it in Britain with a vote to leave the EU earlier this year. Nobody should really be surprised by what happened here. These are people who are frustrated at their capital city ignoring them, and that frustration's been growing, and now it found a valve. We were with them last night, these people, in the Republican headquarters here in Youngstown, and there was absolute euphoria. The rest of the world may be astonished, but everybody in there, from when we arrived here at the start of this week, has told us Trump was definitely going to win. Nobody's surprised here. He's promised he'll make America great again, and they are all convinced that their country will be better for this.
we get our country back, because it was going to be not America anymore. It was going into a socialistic one world order country. And we want a country of capitalism, because that's the conservative way. And we want to be able to make it big in America.
In his campaign, he said a couple of good things. Term limits, reduce taxes, reduce regulations, pull back Obamacare, the medical system, all those things.
One closing thought, Mary. It's easy to think this was only blue-collar America. I've been speaking to small businessmen here this morning who are delighted too. Remember, half of the country, just over half of the country, voted for Donald Trump.
Martin Geisler in Ohio, thank you. Well, the celebrations have been long and loud, as we've been hearing, for supporters of Donald Trump, but it is all very different for the Democrats. Hillary Clinton's camp was distraught as the state started to turn red and hopes of the first woman president diminished.
Completely disturbed, cannot believe what happened tonight. We were sure that Hillary was in.
I mean, we wouldn't have come here if we didn't think she was going to win.
I'm very, very disappointed in my country right now.
So clearly shock there among Democrats. Well, James Mates has spent the night with many of them in New York City. So, James, what now for the woman who fought to the bitter end but lost?
Well, that really is the end. It's the end for her. It's the end for the Clinton dynasty. I only have to look back 48 hours. And that rally with President Obama and Chelsea Clinton was on the stage. And there were Democrats saying, look, after Hillary's been president, we think maybe Chelsea can be president. That's how far removed from reality they were in terms of what was going on. And that was true in all the cities. She won 31 out of 35 the biggest US cities last night. They had no idea what was happening in the country, in the rural areas. The warning signs were definitely there for her. She was the ultimate establishment candidate, and yet there was an anti-establishment wave sweeping right across Europe and across the Atlantic. There were other signs too that the centre-left was being hammered everywhere because of their perceived cooperation with globalisation. They've now been hammered here as well, and she is, of course, the biggest victim of that.
James Mates, thank you. Well, Donald Trump has made some pretty bold statements during this campaign. His focus has been on reversing many of President Obama's policies on health, on climate change, and, of course, immigration.
Oh, we will build a wall. Don't worry about that. Real change begins with immediately repealing and replacing Obamacare. It's a disaster. 2 million people, criminal aliens. Day one, my first hour in office, those people are gone.
Well, just a few of Mr. Trump's promises there during the campaign. And joining me now is Dina Bass, a Republican who was the former press secretary for Dr. Ben Carson, who, of course, ran against Donald Trump in his party's presidential race. Now, Mr. Trump has said that he's going to immediately get rid of up to 2 million illegal immigrants. Is he going to follow through with that?
You know, I think he actually will follow through with that. He's referring to 2 million illegal aliens who are here and who have committed crimes. In America, we have over 12 million undocumented immigrants, and it's unreasonable for him to be able to actually deport 12 million, which he said he'll do. That's not going to happen, but I think he has to follow through on the 2 million who have committed crimes in America.
And what about reversing Obamacare? He's been pretty vociferous about that, hasn't he?
He has been, and again, this is a place where he will have to either put up or shut up. He has both the Senate and the House in Republican hands, so if he said he's going to do it, he has to do it because he has the power to do it.
Now, originally, you backed Dr. Ben Carson, and you only came to the Trump camp pretty late on. Why was that, and how do you feel about the success he's had?
You know, I actually didn't come late on. I came once Dr. Carson suspended his campaign. Trump was not my first choice, but I am a Republican, and Hillary Clinton was not an option for me.
But many people would say, as an African American,
Absolutely.
they're surprised to see you supporting Mr. Trump.
I am probably the 1%, but again, I've been a Republican since I was 12. Hillary Clinton has spent 30 years making promises to African Americans, and she has not followed through. To give 90% of our vote to her without real returns on that investment, to me, is not a wise decision.
What kind of a president is he going to be?
You know, I think he's going to be the same kind of president as he was a candidate, which is kind of shocking, and I think he's going to shake things up in Washington, which is what many people are looking for, myself included.
All right, Dina Bass, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Interesting times. Well, Prime Minister Theresa May was among the world leaders to congratulate Donald Trump on his victory. The German Chancellor, Angela Merkel, said she would work with him on the basis, she said, of values of democracy and dignity of people. Our political correspondent Libby Wiener has more.
Trump выступал с позиции. Der neue Präsident der Vereinigten Staaten von Amerika, Donald Trump.
His election surprised the world, many wary about what the future holds. In Germany, a cool response from the Chancellor Angela Merkel, saying she'd work closely with Mr. Trump on the basis of shared values.
Demokratie, Freiheit.
Democracy, freedom, respecting the rule of law, people's dignity regardless of their origin, the colour of their skin, religion, gender or sexual orientation.
Sexueller Orientierung.
Hardly unconditional support, unlike the response of this man, UKIP's Nigel Farage, who shared a platform with Mr. Trump during the campaign.
This is bigger than Brexit.
Why do you say that?
Because this is the most powerful man in the world, and he's about to change around the direction of America, and he'll do so with a Senate and a House of Reps on his side.
But what did Britain's second woman Prime Minister make of Mr. Trump, given his attitudes to women?
Is he a fit person to hold this office, and will you be able to work with him?
Yes, I look forward to working with President-elect Trump. The American people have elected him as the next President of the United States. Britain and the United States share values of freedom, of democracy and enterprise, and I look forward to building on the special relationship we have between our two countries.
Labour were less enthusiastic about the President-elect.
A result that's very surprising to everybody after a very nasty and divisive campaign that President-elect Trump has run. He's now got to try and bring people together and unite the whole country.
That may well be a very tall order indeed. Libby Wiener, ITV News.
OK, well, let's pause briefly on what's going on here in the United States for a developing story from the UK. And 5 people have been killed and at least 50 others have been injured after a tram overturned in South London. The tram came off the tracks shortly after 6 o'clock this morning, and the driver of that tram has been arrested. Paul Davis has the latest.
In the mist and the rain of a suburban morning, the scene of an unfolding tragedy. An overturned tram lies stricken on its side. Emergency workers erect a blue screen to shield the distressing evidence of injury and loss of life from a passing world that is heading for work. The presence of dozens of emergency vehicles, some with cutting equipment, is an indication that this is a major incident, confirmed by the first official information about casualties.
Together, we are currently working to free 2 people still trapped. A number of people have been taken to hospital with injuries, and sadly we can say that there has been some loss of life.
It was soon after 6 o'clock this morning when the tram, crowded with commuters, derailed near the Sandilands stop in Croydon. The sound woke nearby residents.
I was fast asleep and it was a really, really loud bang. It kind of dragged on for a few seconds, and I thought it was a car crash outside. Sometimes it's a busy road, you do get car crashes.
More than 50 tram passengers needed hospital treatment. Some are seriously injured. The authorities have just confirmed that 5 people have lost their lives. The accident, as yet unexplained, happened near to a set of points. British Transport Police say the tram driver has been arrested. Paul Davis, ITV News.
And any updates, of course, on that incident will be on our website, and that is itv.com/news. Now, a reminder, if you are just joining us here in Washington, that I'm live as America wakes up to the news that Donald Trump will become this country's 45th president in January. He clinched some key swing states in this election to beat Hillary Clinton. He thanked her for her service and said his focus was now on binding the country together.
I say it is time for us to come together as one united people. I pledge to every citizen of our land that I will be president for all Americans, and this is so important to me.
Well, let's get some final thoughts now from our correspondent, Robert Moore. So, Robert, Mr. Trump's still got a lot of people he needs to win over. Can he do that?
Well, I think it's important to note, Mary, this was an absolutely stunning political achievement. Donald Trump yesterday stitched together a coalition of voters we didn't even know exist in this country anymore. But it's important to also say that for a large number of analysts and intellectuals and commentators, this is nothing less than a tragedy for the Republic. This is a man who, in terms of Donald Trump, a man who has coarsened the national conversation, who has talked about locking up his opponent, potentially of not accepting the result of the outcome of this result, who has praised authoritarian leaders, and yet he now becomes America's 45th president. In 72 days, he is commander-in-chief. That is quite a thought.
Robert Moore, thank you. And that's it from us on the day America decided its next president. There were no obvious political ambitions in the young man who studied at the New York Military Academy. Donald Trump instead carved out a reputation as a shrewd businessman. He hinted that he would run for office several times and finally threw his hat into the ring last year. It has been a bitter and bloody campaign, but it was the political outsider, Donald Trump, who emerged victorious. His image projected onto the Empire State Building in New York early this morning. 72 days from now, Mr. Trump will be in the White House behind me, beginning his 4-year time as US president. I'll be back with the evening news at 6:30, but for now, from all of us here on this historic day, goodbye.